Well, hello again, everybody. It's Magical Monday. And we are back with beautiful Bryce and Stephanie. How are you two gorgeouses all the way across the sea? Bryce, you've been gallivanting with Stephanie, and I think you're home now, right? How's
Yeah,
it
well,
going?
I mean, just at home for a little bit. Our gallivanting is not done yet. As long as we're living, we'll be causing trouble somewhere. So,
But that's a really good thing to be causing trouble with, right? Which is
yes, it is.
amazing.
It's fun trouble. We have fun. We always make sure we look cute doing it. So,
That's very cool. Welcome back. I think that we missed last week. We were not on. I've also got a very precious little human being visiting me right now, so I'm doing minimal shows for the next week as well. But happy to be back with you gals. So we have been now munching our way through the bite model.
That's so funny.
And today we are on T, right? So we are on the T for thought control. So I'd be very interested to hear what we have to say about that, the whole thought control thing around this. So yeah, over to you girls.
Stephanie, I'll let you take it away.
So, thought control. We're looking at the T, obviously, for your thought control. So instill black and white versus them and us versus good and evil thinking. So this is where we're not seeing any area of thinking that is in the gray area. So you can't go outside the box. You have to stay within the realm, I guess, of what they're teaching you. It's kind of like if you're looking at it in the church point of view, it's you're either going to heaven or you're going to hell. You're either going to do good or you're going to do evil. You either believe in Christ or you don't believe in Christ. There's no wiggle room. It's a very rigid type of thinking to keep you locked in this trance of control. Bryce, I know that you talk a lot about this, so I'll let you kind of go into that one in your own words as well.
Well, black and white thinking. Now, when I went through trauma therapy, this came up a lot with my trauma therapy, because anytime you're kind of deprogramming from anything, whether it's an abusive relationship or a cult or the media, whatever it is, you have to go through a process of deprogramming. And when we're looking at someone who's trying to control your thoughts, they're gonna give you this idea of black and white thinking. And I know in therapy they say black and white thinking is a sign of a person. It can be a sign of a personality disorder, like borderline personality disorder. And just layman's terms, what borderline personality disorder is when somebody actually believes their emotions are real and justified. So people who are histrionic, who will feel jealousy, and they feel like they have to act out on that jealousy because they perceive it as real. And so that black and white thinking kind of comes within this, and we're seeing this. Before we started filming, we were saying, Stephanie and I have been talking about a lot. We're seeing this derangement. It is a form of derangement and delusional thinking within the truther community too. It's taken an extreme form of thought. And most things lie in shades of gray. Most people lie in shades of gray. It's kind of like the whole idea of shame versus guilt. Someone who feels shame, they feel that their whole being is wrong. Someone who feels guilt knows they did something wrong, but they're a good person. So guilt is the healthier way of looking at something versus shame, if that makes sense. It's an extreme, black and white thinking is an extreme perception. And, I say the quote all the time. It's allegedly it's an Aristotle quote, whoever Aristotle was. That's a topic for a different day. But the quote nonetheless is great. It's a sign of an intelligent mind when you can entertain an idea without accepting it. And so we see this too within our world. We in this side of the battle have been shunned by the other side as being black, as being bad. But we are seeing truthers also shun people, friends who maybe bought into the programming a little bit as being bad, instead of seeing it as more of a gray. Does that make sense? Instead of seeing it more as there should be an overall story there. And so, Stephanie, that's a good point. Like the church will say, it's either you believe Jesus was the Son of God and that's that, and you're going to go to heaven, or you're going to hell. There's no in between. There's no healthy way of living your life. And we see this a lot in education. We've been called science deniers because we've questioned some of the procedures put out there, right? So we've been labeled as bad because we're science deniers because we've questioned this one thing, right? That's black and white thinking. It's like I put a community tab post up because I'm seeing it within, we know that 90% of the truthers are infiltrators, and we're seeing people fall hook, line, and sinker for some of these deceptive messages that are being put out. And somebody told me because I brought that to their attention, I was fear mongering. So that's painting me black because I'm trying to bring in a different perception. Right. And so this is what it's like what we were talking about therapy the other day, Stephanie. Now we know that there are therapists out there that are really bad, that use.
I worked with them.
Yeah, that use tactics. But there's also some out there that are really good.
Yeah.
Right. I had a really great, my therapist, my trauma therapist saved my life. Like, she was fantastic. I don't know personally what her political views are, but I would guess that she's probably just as awake as I am from the things that she would say to me in therapy. She was very well versed in Eastern philosophy. She was, she really helped me a lot. And so we have to, when we're looking at black and white thinking, what we're doing is we're taking a group of people and we're painting them all black because of one thing, instead of seeing them as individuals and seeing them as having their own story. Right? It's like, we know there are people that got this that now regret getting this, and they're good people. And there are people that got this that are still brainwashed, but they're good people. Does that make dumb? Am I making sense? Like, we have to be able to see people. And I feel like in today's world, I feel like because of social media, because of being able to look things up so quickly, this form of derangement is skyrocketing at this point. Where when I was a kid, you saw people getting along and friends who had totally different outlooks on life, but they didn't judge each other for it. They were friends, so I feel like this form of black and white thinking is skyrocketing, but we do see this in extreme cases with cult-like behavior, especially when, you are pushed to ostracize yourself from people who don't think like you, right? We see that there are some extreme churches that do that. That we know the Jehovah's Witnesses do that if someone leaves the Jehovah's Witness faith, their family has to then cut them off because now they're painted black. Right?
It's also happening in families right now too, based on political views or medical views at this point in time. Like, to make myself an example, I was completely on the side of truth and on the side of my own sovereignty when it comes to what I put in my body. And I was completely shunned away from my family, my whole family, for that. Because they were thinking black and white. It's very, very similar now. You're seeing that a lot more in the family dynamic now, where there's like a literal split down the middle of some families.
And again, we're seeing the truther community. If one truther disagrees with another truther, all of a sudden one of the truthers is painted black. And that's deranged thinking. And in my opinion, if we're looking at this from the greater scheme of things, the controllers know this. And so they do this on purpose. The infiltrators into the truther community are doing this on purpose to bring you to a point of derangement. Because if you're at a point of derangement and delusional thinking, you're not going to be able to ground yourself into reality. And if you think about, if you use your own self in as example, we're also, every human being is so multifaceted. We have so many different layers about us and different points of view, and our opinions are constantly evolving and changing, and our work is constantly evolving and changing. So how fair is it for us to paint someone completely black or completely white when we ourselves can view ourselves as something constantly evolving and changing too, where we wouldn't want to be painted completely black or completely white, because we are all a work in progress. And I feel like if people start to really recognize where they're black and white thinking and start to observe that within themselves, I feel like some of this derangement will start to shift a little bit, and people will come right back down to planet Earth again and be grounded. I mean, all four of us, I think I can speak for all four of us. We're the weird kids. We like the spirituality. We like the what is Tyler said, the hoobity joobity stuff. Like we like that stuff.
That's my son Tyler. He calls it hoobu jubu.
We like that stuff, right? We dig that stuff. But I think all four of us are also very grounded individuals too, because we all work on ourselves, and working on yourself is bringing yourself back down to reality. So you're not so caught up into the clouds where that black and white thinking is more accessible if you're not grounded within your own self, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's very important, I think, because it really is rigidity, the way I see it. It's either this or it's that. I mean, and yes, I agree. There are there are times where it has to be either this or that. There are really where there are certain areas where there's, in my opinion, no gray area. You know, touch a child in an inappropriate way. In my mind, there's no gray area there. It doesn't matter whether you've raped the child or just inappropriately fondled or whatever. For me, that's no. But I do definitely believe that that we need to think about integrating and learning to find that. I call it the black and the white, the yin and the yang, and together, when we find that perfect balance, that's when the silver, because that doesn't become gray, it becomes silver in my mind, but that pure white. And that's really when you have the Kundalini activation, the silver serpent that sits at the coil of the spine. When you've understood, it's like both sides of the coin, okay? The coin hasn't got two sides, it's got three sides. It's got the one side, the other side, and then the rim. That's the third side. And when you found that perfect balance within, you ride the rim, right? Then you find that balance. You've understood both faces of it. So I think as human beings, we're always going to go to the extremes on some level or the other, right? It's so bad, it's so wrong, and you must pay penance, and you are evil. And, when we're looking at that, so there's definitely that rigidity, but also the aspect of not everything is peachy clean and beautiful and harmonious and what have you. There's that finding that balance as well. So we have to sit back and realize there's good in everything and there's bad in everything. It's up to us to discern what works for us. What works for me is not necessarily right for you. Yeah. And what works for you is not necessarily right for me. And I think that is what we really, it's all about non-judgment, I think, right? When we live and let live, when we accept that the other lives by their rules and I live by my rules, for me, that's how we start this elimination of this controlled thinking as well. And not just that, we've been, that whole thought control comes from the media. How do we think about ourselves as women? How do we think about ourselves as men? How do we think about life in general? That is thought control. The fact that women have been suppressed and made to believe that they are inferior is thought control. The fact that men have been made to believe that they are superior is thought control. So it's everything that goes along with that as well. And I just think we've got to realize that no matter what sex we are all in this together. We're all living our life. We're all just, as we always say on the show, walking each other home. So, my opinion.
I'll say too, it's almost like when you have that rigid thinking, you've lost touch with your own humanity, your own ability to have empathy. And I'll use an example. I know people are probably not going to like this because of the black and white thinking, but we'll say the CEO of the corporation of where Stephanie and I live, I'm trying to code my words here, Mr. B, his son's device has been released, right? So we know he's done really, really bad things. And he needs to be punished, and there needs to be justice served. However, I also have empathy for him because I know of the shit he went through as a child, and I know the pain. And I've seen the text messages to his own children, where there was some glimmer of understanding that what happened to him wasn't okay. And so, even though that behavior needs to be addressed, there needs to be justice served. It cannot be excused because he was also a victim. As a human being, even though I know he has to be punished, he needs to be punished. I also still have empathy for the little boy inside of him who created the monster that he is today, if that makes sense. And I feel like when we're able to sit back and get in touch with our own humanity, that black and white thinking starts to fade a little bit. And you touched on something too, Shanti, that we talk about with yoga a lot. It's sometimes that rigidity can, if you're noticing it happening with you, it can have a positive side in the sense that it sparks that friction. It creates that friction, which is what you need to. It's like, as I say, striking a match. We're not at the point yet where we can hold that match and just say, you know, bippity boppity boo light. You know, we have to actually have to strike it. And that striking is that friction that creates that light. And so when we're deep, and that's what I loved about my trauma therapy. And that's why I'm not ever going to be pissed off that I went through the situation I went through to put me in trauma therapy, because it afforded me the opportunity to discover this friction and to come out the other side, and to come out the other side a much better person than the person I was before the trauma happened to begin with, if that makes sense. Because I use that friction to understand myself more and the complexities of being a human being. I mean, Earth School is Earth School, and it's like Shanti says, you're the alchemist. You're turning that lead into gold, and so that friction, when you're coming out of that deprogramming, can be used to strike that match. It's like the more your heart breaks, the more the light can actually come in. You know, so that's the positive side of coming and going through deprogramming, is that you start to create that self-healing and that alchemy, and that light starts to shine.
When we're looking at also, when we talk a lot with Jessie Zabota on the show about the rituals and things that the hierarchy kids especially have to go through. One of them is that 12-year-old ritual, you know, with the boys and the girls for that matter. And really with the boys, that's the first time they actually willingly cannibalize, okay? So I don't want to get too graphic on the show, but what have you. But before that, it's like they are controlled to do and to emulate behavior, etc., etc. At the 12-year-old ritual, they then willingly actually take someone's life and cannibalize. And as I said, I don't want to get too graphic, because thereafter, according to them, you now become an adult, and you are now responsible for your actions, and you're now responsible for keeping the secrets of your brothers and your sisters. So it's that absolute control with fear and shame and guilt. And, you know, it's like once the girls have been tortured and raped and stuff like that, then they get accused of being little whores, and stuff like that. So it's amazing how, and that is done in a very intense way, right? But I mean, for us, we've had this going subtly all the time, and in our families without even realizing it. You know, I was told often, you know, you bloody naughty, you're impossible. I heard that often as a child. And what did I do? I definitely played up to that, boy. You better believe it. You better believe I played up to every single minute of that. If they were going to see me as being naughty and impossible, well, then that's how you're going to see me, right? Yeah. Very interesting.
We see that here, actually, in the United States. I know, Stephanie, you can probably speak on this more. And it's, you know, here I can't speak on any other country. I can only speak on the United States. We test. Well, what is testing in schools? It's basically, in my opinion, testing does not give any indication of intelligence. It just shows you which kid is able to memorize and regurgitate the best. And so what I've noticed they do is they take children who don't test well, who maybe can't be programmed, and they put them in the dumb classes. So they tell them over and over and over again throughout their whole childhood, you're in the dumb classes. You're not smart. You're not smart.
I can speak on this.
Yeah. On the flip side,
experience, by the way.
Yeah. On the flip side, we have the kids that are really good at just memorization, are being praised as being the smart ones. Well, then we look at what just happened over the last couple of years and the scam that went on. Who were the people that fell for the scam? And who were the ones that didn't? The kids that have the PhDs that were pushed through the honors courses. I'm generally speaking, I know I was in honors classes as well, and I didn't fall for it. So I know there's always a loophole to every situation, but generally speaking, the PhDs, the highly overeducated people, the smart kids fell for the scam. Who didn't fall for the scam? Generally speaking, the ones who had been told their whole lives that they weren't smart. And they saw through the bullshit. So we are seeing that. So that shows me, when we've had these Luciferians running our world, is that they were priming children who they saw through testing they would be able to thought control the best. And the ones they knew that they wouldn't be able to thought control the best, they used another form of thought control on them, made them feel like they were stupid and therefore wouldn't amount to anything. And that's that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so we have in Connecticut called the Connecticut Mastery Testing. It's done every fall. And you do a math, a writing, a reading, and I think one other different test. I always scored very high in writing because that was my jam. That was what I was really, really good at. And I always would score the highest. But when it came to math and reading comprehension, I was delayed. And I was not in the greatest of situations between the age of 1 and 5 years old. So I was delayed anyways in learning because nobody worked with me during those years except my grandparents when they saw me. So I was taken out of the classroom and I could not be timed because it was a timed test, because what would happen to me is I would freeze. I wouldn't be able to even start the test because my anxiety, I just freeze. But I was told time and time again, well, why can't you get grades like your brother and sister? Why can't you do well? Why can't you do this? Why can't you just do your homework? Because it was painful for me to actually sit there and do work that I didn't understand and didn't jive with what I felt. So I'm the only person in my entire family that didn't take this and didn't buy into the narrative. So it's almost liberating in a way. And I'm not being facetious about it, but it was almost liberating in a way where I'm like, this whole time I thought I was the dumb one in my family. And it did like push down who I really was. And now during this whole time, even though my entire family alienated me, I've been so empowered, and I'm finding in a new family in all different parts of the world. So there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always that silver lining in the clouds, the silver, right? Silver lining. So I hope that helps people that have been through that.
Yeah, well, let's just put that out there. If you were that kid growing up that was told you were dumb or learning impaired and you're watching this channel because you're aware, guess what? You're highly intelligent. So you can start to release that thought control about yourself.
Absolutely.
For me, form of intelligence is a person that's connected with their intuition. If that for me is intelligence. If you're like connected with your intuition, you'll know what to do. That for me is real intelligence. So yeah, the dumb ones usually don't think too much about everything, while the other ones, they have to think about everything because you have to like be a master and a PhD. So you start losing that connection with your intuition, the feeling of life. If you lose touch of the feeling of life, it doesn't help you understanding life even more. You can do all the studies and philosophies and understanding life, but without the feeling, all is lost. And you just get lost in the ocean of information.
True.
A good example too for people to watch if they haven't watched this. Now, I was with my family and we were watching this a couple summers ago. It's a series, and it was written as a book first, I believe, and then it went into an actual movie series. And this is like a good example of like, kind of like the zombified people who just go with the flow of what their government says or something like that. And then you have the people who sway away from that, and they're sovereign in their thinking and free thinkers. And that movie is called Divergent. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but that's a good series to watch if you want to understand kind of how society and the Divergents have to hide from the government. They have to hide because they're hunted down in that movie. It's a utopian, like post-apocalyptic movie. It's kind of like Hunger Games. It goes kind of hand in hand.
So in other words, they're warning us a little bit about what's to come.
Oh yeah, of course.
We've been warned just a teeny tiny bit, because that's what they always do, right? Especially this post-apocalypse thing, because it looks like we've got. I actually interviewed a very, very interesting gentleman this morning on Australia channel, Aldebar Jones, and he literally is involved with the stuff you're talking about in terms of like checking out what's happening on the earth planes and astral planes and stuff like that. And what he's saying with us is because Earth has literally moved into a not a shifting timeline, dual timeline. So parallel timeline, yeah. And so with the splits already happened. So already some are there and some are there. We've made our choices. And for the next 18 months, we're pretty much doing the high jump because, of course, they don't like now, they know that they don't have control over the human beings anymore, but they don't like that. So now they are just literally going to create as much chaotic mess and wars and food shortages, etc., for the next 18 months just because they can. And, it's all part of them just being spiteful, really.
Well, that's the narcissist. Well, that goes with the law of one, because I've been talking about that a lot with the two splitting earths, and we know we're ascending. Are we going to go fourth density positive or fourth density negative? Well, the thing about these negative beings, they're not just going to give up, because if they can hijack everything and pull it negative, then that's more power for them. And so that's why I've been talking, because I totally agree with that. And, good thing we're all trained to deal with this next 18 months. So
Yeah.
when I was thinking, too, I'm thinking, how many times have the four of us been called names by people who are extremely fundamentalist because we're saying things that challenge their belief system? So we've been called bad names. We've been called things that shows that person's thought control. I've been told that I'm lost because I have a Buddha head. I've had this Buddha head for years. It's not new. And I've been told that I'm lost because I have a Buddha head. That's black and white thinking. That shows you that shows the person saying that they've been thought controlled to paint things black and white.
I had like the German flag or some Illuminati flags.
I have a prayer flag in my kitchen.
Prayer flags. They're not
prayer flag, yes.
I mean, it's insane.
It is insanity.
I want to say before with the black and white, I think that's where it comes in. Maybe the understanding so people can maybe understand it better. Where the gray comes in is that we're either under control of our guilt, our resentments, or some other kind of dark force. But that doesn't necessarily, it's a true reflection of who we are. So it's not that black and white, because like intentions have like all these layers. You've got an intention for intention. So what I love what Chantelle mentioned earlier about the silvers, when we still have that opportunity to transform, and then we get to our true black and white, and that's nothing to do with right and wrong in that sense. So I think the gray area is that's just to realize that we are under control of like our fears, with guilts, and we're like everything is under that. We're not at our true essence of what's truly black and white for us. We're just throwing everything out there and just not realizing that everybody are on a path, and we all, have bits and pieces and stuff like that. So the whole black and white is not a good way to go about things. It's really control. Yeah, it's either your Black Lives Matter or not.
Yes, right. It's absolutely. Right, should we go to the next one?
Yes.
All right. So changing identity and even your name in some instances. So this is a big one, I think, that goes really, really hand in hand with a lot of people that were involved in Hollywood, if they were recruited, or sometimes even the music industry. They, had this happen to them a lot, but it also happens in organized religion as well. And it also can go with like changing your identity based off of actions you've taken. So let's say, for instance, in some cultures, if a woman is RAPE, literally they're labeled, not good things, so that they can no longer participate in, certain social gatherings. I know that's happened in the past with certain cultures. So it's kind of just, it could be your identity as in your name, or, who you are, or just like your identity as, what gender you are. I mean, look what's happening right now in the school system, with the WOKE community. They're making people so confused about what their actual identity is that they're just creating identities, right? So it's very manipulative. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Bryce.
We see this in the spiritual community as well, and I'll go ahead and use Ram Dawson as an example. I mean, he was born Richard Alpert. Now, and I have mixed feelings about this. Now, Ram Dass obviously was not controlled by anyone. He was very independent, and he used both of his names. Like, so his guru gave him the name Ram Dass, his new spiritual name, but he also would go by Richard Alpert as well. And it's interesting. Ram Dass, in one of his books, he even said, I can't remember which book it was. He talked a lot about how when people from the Western world come to India, all of a sudden they'll adapt like this Hindu faith, and they'll totally change their ways, and they'll be Hindu. And he kind of pulled it back a little bit. He was like, well, if you were born Jewish, or if you were born in a Presbyterian church, like, even if you reject that faith, you still need to take the lessons from that faith. Like, if you were born a white girl in Atlanta, Georgia, like, there's a reason why you were born into this identity in this life. There's something to learn from that. So sometimes when we see the extreme of someone like changing their name, what they're doing is another form of black and white thinking, where they're completely just annihilating how they were born in their past to take on a new life. Where in a healthy, like when you go through therapy, you talk about the past, you heal the past, you integrate that all together. So that's the flip side of that. Like for someone, again, Ram Dass, Richard Alpert, he integrated his Eastern belief system along with his Western, kind of the Eastern body, Western mind. She talks about this, doesn't she? She talks about being able to integrate both realities. So there is a positive. There are people who do change their name spiritually, but they're not rejecting their past at the same time. Right. Yeah. But there are people, I'm sure, Shanti, you've seen it, that will completely take on a new, they run from their past. They just ignore it, which is another form of black and white thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's really about understanding that every black in our life has served a purpose. And, you know, the reason why we become rigid in our thinking or in our actions is because we fear losing control. That's really what it's about. You're going to find if you're rigid in your thought patterns, you're going to be rigid in every other area of your life, including your body, including you're going to probably be highly inflexible as well, because healthy mind, healthy body, healthy body, healthy mind. You know, it works. There's more to it than that, by the way, but just, you know, that's the idea. But, you know, and as we lose that rigidity within our thought process, as we start understanding life differently, as we start perceiving things in a different way, as we start realizing there was a gift in this experience, then things start changing, you know, for us on a personal level, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. So it really is about recognizing where we're at, what is creating this fear, because it really is fear. Black and white thinking or rigid thinking is fear-based. Fear, the acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real. Okay? So what are you scared of? Are you scared that this person is not going to go to heaven? Let's talk about religion. Okay? Are you now scared this person is not going to go to heaven? I don't believe you. You don't really care whether that person goes to heaven or not. Let's be honest, right? You don't give a rat's backside. What you're concerned about is being right, and you concerned and being in control, because it gives someone a sense of authority and control to say, well, I've got the best religion, and I want to convert you, and I want to take you to Jesus because you are lost and you are on the wrong road, right? Anything like that. So my point is, really? How do you know what road I've been traveling? So it's not really about saving my soul. Maybe for people that you might be very, very close to and you really feel that, you don't give a rat's backside about whether my soul is saved or not, and be honest about that. Yeah. You don't care. What you care about is being right. And you care to be in control of the situation. And you're scared that you might be on the wrong path, actually. When you are so running around telling people that they are on the wrong path, you're the one that's actually on the wrong path, telling them to do that. So You know, we can look at these things in a myriad of different ways. At the end of the day, if you're into this black and white rigid thinking and rigid control, then sorry for you.
So the next one is loaded language. This one is so used in the church, like heavy. So yeah, using loaded language. And I'm just reading it from my phone here because I can see it better. Clutches to stop complex thought. So I'm actually going to read the definition of loaded language just in case someone out there is like, what is this? Loaded language exists as a substitute for other words or phrases, one more negative or positive than the other depending on the circumstance. A loaded word is chosen because the speaker or writer believes it'll be more persuasive than alternative neutral words. So an example of this is like, and I could be wrong, this is the way I look at it, and this is just the way I feel. But when I have a fundamentalist, if you notice, there are certain words that they use to persuade you to come back to the light, right? Am I right on what that is? I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Like, you almost nailed the nail on the head right there, Shanti, because you were saying how, like, if someone comes up to you and telling you you're lost, and there's a certain pattern of wording that they do use in saying, well, you must believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And then they go on and on and on and on. And there's certain patterning to the words, and they're regurgitating what their pastor taught them on Sunday morning. And it's just like, they're not saying it almost in their own wording. They're saying it as this repeat and memorize and regurgitate type
Poet fashion. Yeah, absolutely. It's not coming from the heart. It's coming from as you say, this regurgitated memory.
But there's like,
and it's control
words that they use. And I find this in the education system too, with what, especially now with what they're teaching. And so again, it goes with black and white thinking, but it's like there's certain word patterns that are being used, manipulative and controlling words. But it's like it's almost in a subtle way, and to a certain extent. Does that make sense? Oh.
Sorry, my laptop's about to die. Sorry about that. I just realized my laptop was like on 2% and it wasn't plugged in. So sorry about that, guys. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna vanish soon. Well, I'll say too, I was thinking too, like when, like growing up, I'll give an example that is commonly, if you had a question in church, like something didn't make sense to you, you're critically thinking, shit's not adding up. You ask a question, what's the most common thing they say to you? They either say, oh, that's the devil messing with your thoughts, or, oh, you just don't have enough faith. So then you get mind scrambled when literally you're asking a legitimate question.
Oh my God, that's happened to me so many times. And then and it gets repeated to you and repeated to you. Like, I was always told, well, the devil was definitely manipulating with my thoughts. And I got to the point where I literally thought it. Like, if someone is repeating something to you so many times, it's like being in a relationship with a toxic person, ABUSC situation, where it's constantly said to you and said to you and said to you, and then you start to believe it. Yeah. You could have started off being a very confident person, and then it dies. It starts to die out. Like, you start to lose, you start to lose your identity almost.
Well, that's what they're hoping you do. That's what, when you get in high control situations, that's what, well, again, I'll take it back to what's happened over these past couple of years with the fancy flu. Those of us who had just a simple question, we go on particular websites, we look at statistics, and we have just a very simple question. We're then told we're science deniers.
Yeah.
Right? That's loaded language. Or we're killing grandmas. That's loaded language too. So it's not, we see this everywhere. It's we see it everywhere. And so, and you're right there, when you're constantly being told something by an outside source about yourself, eventually you'll take over and you'll start telling yourself that person's not even needed anymore. Right. And the more,
absolutely.
Yeah. And then we become so lost and so ungrounded in our own sovereignty that we then cling to organizations like the church or the university or medicine. We start clinging to that because we've lost ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And so we need that entity to give us a sense of self, where the whole point of healing is finding your sense of self back again.
And I think we're so programmed to look outside of ourselves to find our identity, when all along it's all within yourself anyway.
Yeah.
And we're also programmed to compare ourselves to people and to be in this like competition with other people. Well, that person is, you know, thin, I need to be that thin. Or that person eats vegan, I need to eat vegan now. Like we're not looking within ourselves like who. And that's what I've been doing the last 3 years. Who am I? You know, like when Bryce came up and when I went down there, me and Bryce have totally two different body types completely. We're both on the shorter side, but she's a little taller than me, but she's more long and lanky. I'm more short and stocky. And the thing is, if that was 3 years ago, it probably would have said, oh crap, I need to look like that. There's no way I can look like Bryce because that's Bryce. That's how God made Bryce. Instead, I was like, no, this is who I am. This is what I look like. And, you know, I got a couple flaws going on and everything like that, but that's what God created me to be. And I have to learn from who I am. And, you know, if I did gain weight a while ago, well, why did I gain weight? I'm losing it now. I'm doing something about it now. So I learned from that. I learned why. I learned that food was a crutch at one time, or I had a chakra blockage in the root up to the solar plexus area. That's where I gain all my weight. So it's like, instead of comparing ourselves, we need to look within. You know what I mean? I'm trying to make a good example there.
Well, and it's so funny you brought that up because we see this in the yoga world all the time as well. And especially in Ashtanga, because we have this thing, we say Ashtangarex, because people do get really skinny when they practice Ashtanga, but I'm telling you, it wears off. All of a sudden your body gets used to it. But last night I was talking to one of our assistants at Charlotte, because I'm handing over some of my courses to her because I just have too much on my plate. And this assistant was a little self-conscious because she perceives me as being thin and very fit. And she doesn't perceive herself that way. So she was like, am I good? And I was like, obviously I'm handing this off to you because I know you can do it. What your body looks like never even crossed my mind. I know you're a good teacher and I know you can take over this course. Like, I know you can do it. And so we see that a lot with these perceived ideas of what your identity is supposed to be. And I will say, I see it a lot. There's a teacher, a certified teacher, female in Ashtanga. There's only 50 certified teachers in the world. There's 17 of them are female. My friend Harmony up in Canada. And she was down in Atlanta a few years ago teaching. And there's a posture in the second series that requires a lot of strength. And for women, they kind of get a pass sometimes. They can get a help with it to go to the next posture. But one of the students was asking Harmony, like, she was on the verge of being able to do this. And she was like, what do I need to do to be able to finally do this? And Harmony was saying after class, Harmony was like, I could have told her if you lose 10 pounds, then this will be easy for you. But I didn't, because is that posture worth an eating disorder?
Yeah.
And so we see this a lot in the yoga world too, where people actually fall into like eating disorders. They fall into this, again, rigid thinking, this extreme, in order to fit a certain identity. Yes, I am Vata Pitta. I am a thin person. I always will be. I have the propensity to lose weight. That's just how my body is. And Stephanie's different. She's actually tridosha, but it's just different.
But I have a lot of kapha in me, which is why I'm a little on the thicker side.
But kapha's, it's beautiful, and everybody's body tells a story. And I told you, Stephanie, we were up at your house and we were talking about weight gain. And I said, I don't see people when they gain. I don't see it as weight gain. I see it as their wounds. They're not fat. There's just a wound there. That's all that is. It's a boo-boo. It's a wound. And that can be corrected. Same with people that get too skinny. It's a wound. And so
I just want to say something here about that when you were saying about the yoga teacher saying, well, if she had lost 10 pounds, she would probably be able to do it. And, you know.
Well, she didn't say that. She said she could have, but she didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. And what I think about, obviously, is how many yoga teachers probably would say that. And you see, that is the problem, because again, with the art of yoga, it's not about the posture. The posture is just a end result of something. It's the journey. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's weight is different. You know, some people I have noticed are really, they are born to be more curvy. And I think some people are just really beautiful, more curvy. It doesn't matter how much body fat you have or anything like that. You see, there again, and I want to say that, and I say this because I'm in the yoga community as well. And I've seen this happen a lot over the years, is that people are so self-conscious about their bodies and what my body looks like. And I can't do this because I'm this and this. And I'm going, absolutely not. You have a body. You are beautiful. You deserve to go to the beach. I don't care what you think your body looks like, you know? So it really is, it's not about the end result. You know, us Westerners, I mean, you speak to someone like Andy Bond, and I know she's coming back on again, who studied the Eastern teachings, all the missing, lost Eastern teachings as well. And a lot of that, a lot of the yoga stuff that we've also been taught is very, very conditional from male energies a lot, guys. Male energies a lot, just talking about this. So it's not about the outcome. Yoga is not gymnastics. It's about the journey of opening up to receive the energies and the flexibility. And my end result is different to your end result. And this is why I love yoga, actually, because it's never about an outcome. It is an ongoing process that you learn to think differently. You learn to love yourself. You learn to appreciate yourself. You learn to enjoy what you're doing. You learn to enjoy taking yourself to a place without hurting yourself. And that is very much a mental thing and an emotional thing that yoga teaches us. It's the journey. It's not the end result. It's the journey. Life is yoga. It's got nothing to do with the end posture.
Yeah.
It's about
and so many people in the yoga world, especially at the beginning of their journey, get really confused by that. And they want to have the quote unquote yoga body. They buy a bunch of mala beads and they wear them all and they want to put this outfit on. It's like, no, and I know one of the things we're going to talk about is chanting and prayer and how that can be done to an excess.
Which is our next bullet point, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring two different bullet points on here together, but keep going, Bryce, about that.
Well, so with the one where it says excessive meditation, singing, prayer, and chanting, that is actually something that we teach at our shala, to be very mindful about how long during the day you're actually spending. And in the Ayurvedic system, your inside cannot be as pure as the outside. So I always laugh with my students because I'm right in the middle of a city of 6 million people. So I'm like, that means that we get to have a beer every once in a while, because you can't be purer than your environment, right? But if you're living up in the North Georgia mountains, you could be a pure vegan drinking, fountain fresh water and be fine because you're matching your environment. And the same thing goes especially with meditation. And this I've seen happen just in my own life with multiple people, where they get into seated meditation and they do it for hours a day. And what tends to happen is that they're using that as a form of escapism, because they're not actually using the meditation to inform their life. They're taking their life and bringing it into meditation to leave the life that they're in. There's many people I know that stayed in bad marriages longer than they should have because they would just sit and meditate when they would get stressed out instead of actually dealing with the issue. And so we see this a lot in the church too, with the repetitive of the Lord's Prayer. There's
more to that too, but I'll get into that after.
With the now with meditation, singing, prayer, like my teacher in India and my teacher here in the United States, David Garrigues, were very, very good at looking back. They were really good at not crossing certain boundaries when it came to your own perceptions of your mind. For example, whenever I go to Philadelphia to practice with David, or whenever I went to India or go to India to practice with my teacher there, they are hands off when it comes to you have to find your own place to live. You have to fill up your day besides your classes that you've signed up for. Like there's boundaries on your off time, right? You know, and in conferences, my teachers would talk about this a lot. Like, you have to also be a human being as well. You have to be able to use your practice to inform your life. And so sometimes when people get into these trance-like chanting, because I love Vedic chanting, I incorporate Vedic chanting into my practice, but I only do it for like 15 minutes. You know, my practice in the morning is an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then maybe I'll do a few chants. And that's it. Or like if I'm in traffic here in Atlanta and I'm getting really frustrated because it's taking me 2 hours to get a mile down the road, to calm myself down, chanting, the Vedic chanting is used to help the mind focus. That's what a chant is. It helps you focus your mind. And so I'll do certain chants in my car to help get my mind to calm down so I don't get anxiety about being frustrated in traffic. Right. So I'm using that as a tool to calm myself down so I don't do something destructive on the road to somebody else. Right. I always laugh and tell my students, I'm the person with chanting music playing, flicking people off down the freeway. You know, like that's who I am. But we do see some, and this kind of goes along the lines of spiritual manipulation, which is a whole other topic for another day. And maybe we can cover that when we're done with the light model, is really get into what spiritual manipulation is. But spiritual manipulation is used in every single religion, every single spiritual practice out there. It's used, it brings you into the fantastical, the otherworldly, so that you think that you need to cling to this group of people. It's like when Stephanie, when we broke down Bethel Church in California on the Dark Outpost, they actually have a fog machine where they create like a smoky thing and they tell their people that that's the Holy Spirit. And then whistleblowers have come out and said, no, there's a damn fog machine they're turning on.
What?
That's a form of
manipulation. Only in America. Only in America.
I mean, there are videos you can watch. It's quite horrifying. But they get you. These are mad. They're hypnotists, right? They get you into this. You know, Shanti, I know you probably done chants where you get into the chant and you're really feeling the because the chant itself is healing. The Sanskrit it's a healing language, and so it's already starting to vibrationally heal you. So you're kind of, and so what a church or a group will do is get you to this point of being in this like altered state, and then all of a sudden they'll do something like turn the fog machine on.
I want to take it a step backwards a little bit. Now, I've tried all the denominations on, all of them. None of them fit me well. But from Catholic to Protestant, and Protestant, you know, is multiple denominations or whatever. Now, one thing in the Catholic Church doesn't do this as much, so the other churches do. You have a worship team up front. They dim the lights and they play this worship music. And something that always annoyed the living snot out of me with worship music is somewhere in the middle, and then at the end, they take a sentence in the music and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. And everybody is swaying back and forth. Their hands are in the air. They're just like entranced. And I never did that. And I would actually get like ridiculed in some churches that I didn't do that. But to me, it actually gave me anxiety. I'd be like, what's going on? Get me out of here. But anyways, they use the music to entrance you and zombify you before the sermon. And then after the sermon, while they're doing the collection plate or whatnot, they entrance you again with the repetitive parts of this song. That is something I always noticed for the 15 years I was going to those types of churches, was you're going to have these worship songs. And especially if your church is doing like Hillsong United songs, there's a lot of repetitiveness. They'll take a sentence and just keep on repeating and repeating. And then it builds up and builds up and builds up. And then it's the chorus again. That's something I realized was a form of getting you And
It's that is a perfect example of spiritual manipulation too. And I'll give you guys. So there's this teacher in the Ashtanga world who I cannot stand. He's a raging psycho narcopath. I'm not going to say his name, but he wrote this book a few years ago. He allegedly, I don't even think he was a heroin addict, but allegedly he was. And allegedly he went through rehab, and allegedly the Ashtanga yoga system saved his life. Well, I was reading his book, and in his book, he mentioned that he had these, like, you know how when you do heroin, you'll have like marks on your arm from you know, I don't know what I can say, but you guys know what I'm talking about, the drag marks, whatever they are. And a lot of people who have struggled with heroin addiction, from my understanding, never done heroin, never will do heroin, but from my understanding, when they've done it that much, these scars are kind of permanent. Like they have there's scarring on their arm. Well, this guy in his book wrote that the practice of Ashtanga yoga took away his scars. And immediately when I read that, my red flags went up. This is the same guy who broke my sacrum, Stephanie. My red flags.
I already connected the dots when you said that.
I was like, this doesn't happen. Like, okay, I've got a huge gaping scar across my stomach from when I had my appendix out at 12 years old in the dark ages, where they literally hacked you in half. I've got a scar on my back from back surgery. I've done this practice for 15 years. Those scars are still there. I never expected them to go anywhere. And so I actually, at that point, I started calling other rehab facilities and talking to people. And I was like, do track marks, do they leave? Do they disappear? And some would say, depending on the severity of the abuse, some no. And I said, would any yoga practice get rid of them? No. So that's spiritual manipulation right there. That's another form of spiritual manipulation. Subsequently, this teacher went and got a bunch of tattoos on his arms, so you can't see anyway what his arms look like, which I thought was very clever of him to hide the evidence. But yeah, so that goes along with the excessive chanting, singing. And again, chanting, singing, meditation, all this stuff is very positive when done properly. Mm-hmm. And when you were looking at, like Stephanie and I did a live the other day, and someone sent us in a question, and I forgot the question was, but it had to do with their spiritual practice and her teacher. And immediately I got cult vibes. Immediately I said something to her like, you got to be careful. This to me stinks of a cult, of abuse, of someone who's, you know, in my form of yoga, we practice in Mysore style, which means that you have your set series, you go in a room and everybody's practicing around you, and the teacher works with individuals. It's basically, you get a private lesson every day. But in my form of yoga, there's no yoga voice. The teacher doesn't change their voice and put on there's no poetry being read. I mean, my teacher like will kind of yell at you, like, where's your mind? Like where's your mind? Where's your mind? Like where? Wife fearing. That's a big thing to say. Wife fearing, like in the middle of your practice. And then when it's time to take rest, you just lay down on your mat and the person beside you is doing freaking TikToks. And you're just laying there. When you're done, you get up and leave. When I lead a lead class or primary series, at the end when they take rest, I put them in rest, and then I go to the front lobby and I let them get themselves up. I don't do any type of poetry reading, any type of dimming the lights, lighting candles, nothing like that. I just put them in rest and I walk out to the lobby and I say, next class starts in 30 minutes. You got 30 minutes. Take your time. And then let them do their own thing. And so when you're involved in any type of spirituality, when you're involved in any type of religion or whatever it is, look at the way the leader is behaving with all of the parishioners, all of the students. Does the leader put boundaries on him or herself as far as like, allowing students to lionize? If a teacher's allowing a student to lionize him or her, not good. If a teacher or a leader is trying to dictate what you eat or who you hang out with, not good. Or demanding that you meditate for 2 hours a day or follow this particular chant. You need to have some, even though you're allowing that person to teach you or give you information, you also have a part in this too. Right? Am I making sense? Mm-hmm. I feel like I've been lucky that way. I feel like I've had really good teachers that were very good at like not stepping over those boundaries of your life and what you choose to do. And there's also when you're looking at a spiritual leader or a teacher, there's this thing. You as a teacher, for me as a teacher, for Shanti as a teacher, for anybody who's in that leadership position, you can't interrupt that person's karma. You can't step in. You have to let them experience what it is they need to experience. You can't, and it's hard sometimes. Sometimes you want to step in, but you have to let them experience it.
Yeah, it's true. No one can do it for another. got to step back and live and let live, For me, that's what it is. And, assist where you can, do what you need to do, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones. Understand that everyone has a desire to live their own life without being told how to do it, when to do it, and how often to do it. So I think that's very interesting. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Very much. And I want to just say, I think we're looking out of time here. Is there anything else, Steph, from your side still that we have to go through, Steph?
I think we didn't cover every single bullet point, but we covered like the really important ones. And I think the two big ones were the black and white thinking, because I think that's like a very I think that goes hand in hand with all the bullet points anyways. But I really did want to cover that excessive meditation singing thing, because I've seen it myself in the Christian world. And Bryce, you've seen it yourself in the yoga world. And it is a form of escapism, big time. And that's what they want you to do, actually, so that you're not healing through your karma, your work.
Exactly. So
and it totally liberates me in understanding of why I never felt comfortable during worship time in church. It really didn't. Something was like, ooh, there's something wrong with this. But because I do know you have a large Christian following, it's something to really consider and look into, because it's almost every single church that's not Catholic. Now, the Catholics use a different method, I would say. I think the stand, sit, and kneel thing, that repetitiveness, you know what I mean? Kind of like, I don't know if it plays kind of the same way in it, but it's been a long time since I've been in Catholic church. But yeah, the whole singing thing excessively over and over and over again, it definitely puts you in a trance and zombifies you in a way so that you are prepared for your indoctrination class for that Sunday morning.
Well, you also look at the gaslighting too. That's part of the thought control too, which is the loaded language, is the gaslighting, making you feel like you're crazy.
Yeah.
If someone's making
with
you, if
the
you
fog
feel
machine.
do what?
Prepare for the fog machine.
Prepare the fog machine, yeah. Yo, I'm serious. You should go look it up. Just type in Bethel Church fog machine.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's
like, oh my God, and people buy this. They think that they're seeing God. It's just a fog machine.
It's like,
these things.
Healing people right on the spot, and everybody's falling over. And
oh, that's so funny. If you that video, you see him trying to lay hands and heal people, and there are a couple of people that are looking at each other are we supposed to fall? I will tell you, one of my really good friends grew up in Black church, and Black church in the South is way more animated than white church. White church is way more boring than Black church. And she would tell me all the time, she goes, Bryce, it's hysterical on Sundays. You see the ladies with their purses, and they'll make sure their purse is set just fine before they have their fainting spell. She's like, it's hysterical. They got to make sure the purse is okay before they have their fainting spell. So we see this everywhere. But if you watch the Bethel videos, you do see people in the audience that are like, everybody else is passing out, so should we pass out too? It's kind of like it's just following the crowd. But yeah, they do. They have a fog machine. Just like a Broadway musical, they got a fog machine.
It's a show.
As long as it's got a Bible on,
Oh, they put a purple light or something behind it too. I mean, they've really gone all. I mean, we got to hand it to them. They've really gone all out to try to mimic God.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm kind of thinking about, when you go to these parties and they put these bubble machines, with these.
It's like a Christian race.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
there's churches that do a whole light show too.
I'm tickled pink by that. I think that is so funny. It is so funny.
And you think about, okay, so people are actually planning this. Somebody's sitting there in a meeting going, it'd be real great if we got a fog machine.
Yeah,
and they put a Jesus shape there as well. I'm wondering if you get
all of a sudden.
You get cookie cutters with different shapes. I'm wondering if the fogger will pop out different shapes.
What would be really funny if it just stopped working one day in the middle of a Sunday, they had a technical difficulty, and all of a sudden, oh, I guess God just didn't show up today. Y'all weren't singing hard enough. You weren't fainting hard
That's
enough.
probably what they would do too. That's probably what they would do.
You didn't give us enough money, so God didn't show up.
You skipped donations. Somebody skipped donations.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the fog machine just malfunctioned, you know? Like my laptop, someone forgot to charge it overnight. They need new batteries. So,
oh my goodness.
But that's, if your church is doing shit like that, you might be in a cult. Like, let's just put it. And you know what? Broadway does it better. And at least, you know, with Broadway, it's intentional. Yeah. Right? Like, it's intentional. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Pray. They try to control the way people pray. Like, this is how you should pray. Just talk to God. Like, that's all prayer. Just, I mean,
that repetitiveness.
Huh? What's that?
I've seen so many people, like pastors and other people that go to church, and it's this very, very rigid, repetitive thing. There's nothing coming from the heart in it. And it would drive me nuts. And they would say, Father God, after every single couple words. I'm just like, get me. I can't even tell you how annoyed I get. As you can see, I have no words for it. But the whole repetitive thing, it's like in education and it's all repetitiveness, and it's to feed you with what they want you to believe, because repetitiveness, eventually you believe it.
Yeah. Well, exactly. We've seen that with spiky flu, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's never been so obvious as what it's been with spiky flu when they brought this out. Anyway, this has been fun.
I'm gonna send you guys a fog machine over to South Africa for you guys.
I've been thinking about fog machine.
Put it in the middle of one of your videos and be like, the Holy Spirit is with me today.
Holy Spirit, activate. God's with me, guys. The fog machine.
Okay.
Gotta have fun with this. Gotta have fun.
I mean, if you're gonna put a fog machine in your church, you deserve to be made fun of. Like,
God must be in such hysterical fits of laughter at how creative we've become with this kind of nonsense. You know? Anyway, wow, so fun having you girls back again. Love this. Thank you so much for joining us, and then we look forward to next week, which is munching on the E of the bite model, and that I would imagine be emotional control, right? Mm-hmm. So we're looking at the E being emotional control. Totally looking forward to hearing about that, because oh boy, that's the one thing that these dodgy doorers know exactly how to do, is to control our emotions as well, but not 100%. For love. So thank you so much for watching us. We're not going to be doing Wednesday, Bryce and myself, this week either. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, with Tartaria. Sorry guys, I know that we've been I don't want to say neglecting, but it's just been the Wednesdays. You guys have been traveling. It was my mama's birthday last week. I've got my baby here, and I'm on play dates and things like that. It's so fun. We're going to trampoline, and I'm being a kid again. So it's all lots and lots of fun.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Girls, is there anything that you guys and girls would like to say maybe before we just end off for today? Thank you. Before, we sign off.
Just listen to your gut. Print out the bite model, put it on your refrigerator, and check it every day to check yourself to make sure you're not being manipulated, because you deserve better than that. Yeah.
One of our.
Get your fog machine.
Get your fog machine.
In your purple light.
One of our viewers says just light a joint. I'm definitely not blocking that viewer.
There you go. That works.
Do some shrooms. It's fine.
So, but, okay, we could get carried away with this. I could just see myself here. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Mwah. We will see you back in a week. I shall see you 9:30 tomorrow morning. GMT +2. We've got an amazing overcomer, New Zealand lady, for those interested, a lady called Gloria Masters. I'll be interviewing her. Also had some hell to horror story, but wow, what an amazing, what a blessing it is for me to see how these people, a lot of them have healed through this horrific stuff. And quite frankly, if there are people out there that can heal through this, really, thought control is a small price that we've got to unprogram ourselves from and heal from, really. Just got to look at what's happening around us. So thank you so much. God bless you all. If you haven't already, please give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. All our links are in the bottom to wherever. Our Twitter account has been suspended. Yeah, we got our Twitter account suspended. So we can add my Twitter handle, Morné's Twitter handle. You guys can follow us on there as well.
And I started a new Twitter account as well, so you can just go follow our new one and build that up again.
Yeah, okay, so we are on a new Twitter account now, so tweet us. And we'll see you soon. Mwah. Take good care. Lots of love, guys.